Hey there, welcome. I want to talk about speaking from a place of authority and how common and not helpful this is in the world. I made a video a few weeks ago about people always needing to be right, always needing to be good, even almost justifying everything they do because they're so certain they are good people that got their stuff together, and thus all the things they do must also be good and justified. This is kind of an extension of that, but it's a little different in the sense that I find it riddles basic conversations with people, and we don't question the information we're given. We don't question the avenue of information we hold. And yet at other times we'll still be aware that we're just getting all this shit from the internet, that it's not easy to know the truth of all the sources we acquired information from, all the articles and stuff we read. People have a glimpse of like this reality of just the information internet age, just like spewing shit, and they'll even see people usually in opposing doctrines or opinions. They'll easily see like, oh, well, they're just fed propaganda, they're getting bad sourced information. But people don't think that about themselves very much, at least in my experience. The things that I might speak with authority on, I still am completely open to just new data changing how I speak about something, what I express, and what I think. I don't care. It's just information. Why would I care? I have no leg in the race. Why would I be attached to a subset of information when it's just information? It's just data. It's just more stuff amongst the infinite stuff. So if new studies come out, if new realities emerge, and we have evidence of different things, well, I'm open to it all. I'm not going to just believe everything I hear or read, but I'm not going to resist anything new either, especially if it's reasonable and, well gathered, and not obviously just greed and propaganda for ulterior motives and financial interest and so on. But I find that this isn't the case for people. I was talking about Hinduism and Buddhism the other day with someone who is within the Islamic Muslim community, and they were a little upset, kind of spout out how Hindus have killed millions of Muslims. And they must have just read this somewhere. I don't know where they read it. It's not untrue that there hasn't been, there's been controversy and conflict between Muslim people and Hindu people for hundreds of years. But it's such a weird blanket statement to think and to hold on to, that, oh, Hindus persecuted millions of Muslims, when it's like, well, if you look at the history, it's just like many countries, regardless of religion, there's just been conflict and war and death between each other. So it was a weird thing to hear and a weird thing to respond to, because the way they said it is like, they know this for sure, this is a fact. But it might not be. And this is the case for people that are really resistant to veganism or living a plant-based lifestyle that just technically causes less suffering to beings. There's no argument. There's no evidence we have at all to suggest killing animals for food and destroying way more land and forests and plants to feed those animals. There's no really possible mathematic way we can say oh, that's less suffering than just eating plants ourselves, when we don't need anything but plants, earnestly, and some bacteria. that's very common too. You know, people just like spout things they heard on Instagram or TikTok, or you know, someone they follow on YouTube, or an article they read that very well could have been just a confirmation bias or published by a, you know, a series of organizations that have financial attachment to animal products, and they'll say nonsense, you know, like animals are treated great and it's all good and it's good for the environment, when we just have like tons of scientists who aren't vegans, climate scientists and agricultural scientists, that just show the data. They're not necessarily like a bunch of vegans trying to make everyone conform to this new cult dynamic. They're just scientists that aren't funded by any specific group or industry or organization, and there's like an immense amount of data to show the issues with our agricultural systems, both animal and non-animal, but that the primary issues revolve around the animal agriculture. This isn't like a vegan video, it's just an example of how people will take a couple random things they saw and then they'll speak like they're an expert in it. Imagine if we did that, like we saw a video of surgery a couple times and we thought we were experts at surgery. It's just weird the amount of things people will feel authoritative on when they know they're not an expert in it. I just refer to the experts, you know, like there's thousands of studies out there to suggest the benefits of plant-based diets. You don't need me as an authority to tell you that. You can just go look at what those experts are saying. It's like free, it's out there. You can even see people showing why we can trust this data, and the data that is less trustworthy, that is obviously funded, has conflicts of interest, badly designed, interpreted falsely. This is the case for nutrition. This is the case for environmental sciences. This is the case for psychology, sociological surveys. There's a subset of studies and data that's going to be more accurate than others, and we can just keep learning and keep growing and seeing where the data is going, and see if the outliers are speaking of a greater truth or if they have issues with them, like funding, conflicts of interest, bad study design, etc. And a lot of times that is the case. And I just trust the people doing these to some extent. You know, I trust the people that are experts in these fields more than I just trust somebody that has an opinion and they watched TikTok. Like there's no, like I'm not gonna do that. And then I'm not gonna just trust a doctor that has, or someone with a PhD, but they're talking about something that they didn't study, that wasn't their field of research, wasn't their field of expertise, just because they have a certificate or a label. And this is common. People just like flash a credential to get people to be persuaded by what they say. I wonder what makes people want to speak with authority. And I really think it's a sense of self-worth. I think people need to feel smart, need to feel confident. I think people want to have company and affection from others. And this is easier if other people trust them and other people are attracted to them and other people rely on them. And that happens much more if you're confident and you can give information and people will trust you, come to you for that information, or people will start to think like you because you gave them that information in such a confident way. And then if someone thinks like you, it's much easier to have harmony, good times, and attention. I think there's a lot of psychological reasons that are here on why we have this fake it till you make it, false confidence, you know, false charisma. this speaking from authority that is unjustified earnestly. If someone comes to me with new data, I just like talking about it and figuring it out and sharing ideas. If they come to me with data and it just seems irrational, it doesn't fit logical frameworks, if they're speaking in a way that isn't consistent, I question them. Sometimes this is tough, but this is the appropriate thing to do rather than just blindly believing everything everybody says, rather than just accepting everything everybody does and says. But I think it is a social phenomena that is making life on this planet really hard. One of many. The more we speak humbly, we can speak with passion and confidence, but at least with an openness to change and question and discuss calmly and lovingly, because we're just going to keep ourselves separate. We're going to be basically pulled along by content and media, which are sometimes funded, sometimes propaganda, sometimes just other people's limited biases that are unhealthy and cause suffering. And we're going to get swayed by those because there's no interaction. We watch a video, we read an article, we listen to the news, we scroll and see info. There's no interaction here. It really just is us absorbing information, just experiencing information one-sidedly. And the more we just take in that pattern and then want to give that pattern to the world, where it is, there's no dialectic, there's no dialogue, there's no interaction and interrelation, the harder it is going to be to create community and bonds and support one another, to have a world where we're not just hedonistic, consumerist, struggling to survive and pay mortgages and rents and bills. But we need to be able to be content. We need to be able to love ourselves in our meekness, in our vulnerability, in our imperfections. Not to maintain them, but to realize that we aren't an authority on everything. We don't know everything. And anything we say, especially if we say it without evidence, we say it without actually knowing, but we think we know, we should learn to be able to question it and to be able to engage in other people questioning it, because then that's how we grow together. That's how we create the satsang. That's how we create the sangha, is that we're able to lovingly change and converse. But we're a little ways from that because I think we're so fragile, we're so in need of attention and trust and a sense of self-worth that's inflated and illusory, because we're just copying what we see influencers do and actors do and other teachers do, other people, and we want to have what they have. And we want that attention, we want those resources, we want that comfort and luxury, or we want that influence. So we mimic and we just speak as if we're an authority on something we're not. And then when people question us, at best we just change topics usually. And this is a plague of the mind in this world. Rather than actually figuring out things and actually trying to find out what's true, there's this weird sense of wanting to be an authority, wanting to be on top, wanting to be smarter, wanting to have the answer so other people come to me. And there's a sadness here. It's this need for a certain type of attention. And in a way, that's what I'm doing. I'm just feeding you guys content. I'm just talking at this camera. But I waited a long time to do this because I wanted to feel earnestly like kind of avid in this field, kind of adept. And I do think I came a long enough way comparatively to who actually teaches yoga and yogic philosophy and non-duality, that I think it's okay. Like, I think this is worthy content, and I self-reflect on that. There's some videos you'll never see because I just felt like, yeah, that's not appropriate or good enough or necessarily true. And if I do kind of change perspective because I realize something, I'll make a video about it and kind of retrace my steps. Because I've been, questioning these things since, like, I don't know, 2011. It's kind of when it started, end of high school for me. Just kind of questioning reality. I was just like watching TED Talk after TED Talk and like kind of meditating, staring at the ceiling, just thinking about life and morals and creativity and imagination and happiness and purpose and meaning. And this all led me down a path of psychedelics and neuroscience and psychology, and then Buddhism and yoga and the New Age movements, angels and tarot cards and astrology. And then many things fell away, and what really stayed was this non-dual understanding of infinite reality, which is highly expressed by the pinnacle yogis of different sects and the Buddhist yogis as well. And so I studied that, and I would listen and read almost every day for a few years this stuff. And I would also put it into practice, and I would contemplate it and really embody it. So, I might not know as much as an academic, but I might actually apply it more to my life. I might not be as good at physical yoga as a person who's, really focused on the hatha vinyasa side of things, but I might actually be happier and more compassionate and less judgmental due to how I embody the philosophical practice. It's not about competition or comparison, really. It's just about, I feel there's a need for applied non-duality in the discourse of yoga and Buddhism, etc., and actually living it and not just being talking heads and not just being cherry picking heads. So that's why I feel confident to deliver this, but I'm always open to discourse. I'm always open to changing and growing and realizing things. Why wouldn't I be? That would just be dumb to not be. It would just be digging my own grave if I wasn't. The whole point of this video is to just be aware that this is a pattern we can do ourselves and that other people do. And I think it leads us to try and learn calm, compassionate communication. I think it leads us to finding people that are more willing to question themselves and to question us too, not just one-sided, so that we can all grow together. And I think it helps us learn to be present and practical, because the more we argue, the more we kind of stay butting heads with our difference, the more we try to figure out the truth about something neither of us are an expert on. The biggest one is probably politics. People just feel like they're so certain about their political stance, even though they're so not experts on it. Then we just argue. It's like neither of us are architects and we're arguing about how this house should be built. It's like, this is a waste of time. It just causes suffering and tension and confusion and illusion. We don't need to do that. I think it's better to just be like, well, you know what? I don't know. And the other person be like, you know what? I also don't actually know. Let's do something that creates love together. Let's create something beautiful. Let's help each other. Let's cooperate. We don't need to argue on ideas all the time. We can have kind debates on things that yeah, maybe we do know a little bit about it, and by discussing it, we can get better at that thing. But then it's loving. It's not really trying to convince other people so much. So try not to speak about things with authority if you're not an expert in them. If you're just getting info from random scrollings on the internet. Even if you are an expert in something, it's way better to be open to change and growth and new data. That's the mature, loving thing to do. And practice calm, compassionate communication and questioning of ourselves and others, and being open to other people giving us questions, so that we can create this global community of spiritual, harmless, practical love. Because a lot of us struggle on this plane of existence, but we don't need to if we just work together. So thank you so much for watching. Om Sai Ram.